try taxes. In fact, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers says now is the perfect time for something like a carbon tax. Sound familiar? A lot of liberals have been saying much the same for hiking the gas tax, that prices have fallen so much, so fast, that us clueless saps paying at the pump really won't notice the difference. But Cato's tax guy Dan Mitchell says don't bet on that, because once these guys start taxing, they won't be stopping, and they won't be reversing that when oil prices, gas prices inevitably renew rising, right?
Larry Summers, I guess, let's call him the Grinch who stole low energy prices. And he makes this argument in the newspaper editorial that, oh, this is a great time to raise energy taxes because prices are low. But he would use any excuse. Oh, the sun rises in the east. Let's raise a tax. The sun sets in the west. Because all through his public career, he has been in favor of big government. And if you read the details in his column, it turns out that he wants to use the money for more income redistribution and more pork barrel infrastructure projects run out of Washington with the same failed model that we've seen for years and years. So the bottom line is, if you think that Greece is a good role model, if you think France is a good role model, then let's take Larry Summers' advice and use this period of low energy prices as an excuse to make government bigger.
And by the way, you mentioned France. I mentioned they're taking away that jumbo tax on the super rich, but they are toying with still higher gas taxes. So I left that little detail out, and thanks for catching that. But Dan, the one thing I want to know is this. The argument for doing this right now is that we wouldn't notice. Let's say if prices have fallen more than $1, let's say for a gallon of gasoline over the last year, would we notice another 10 cents or even 15 cents in gas taxes? That's how arrogant the thinking is on the part of liberals pushing this, that you know, year over year we're still better off, and that we should still be appreciative of that. What do you make of that?
Well, if the government somehow had the magical skill to time the market just right, maybe we wouldn't notice it. But one thing would be true, we wouldn't be benefiting from the lower energy prices. The government would.
And by the way, Dan, we would notice it now. We would notice it now, that any jump of a dime or more at this level, we would notice it now. You get used to them low just as much as you get used to them high.
Yeah, and the point is that I can guarantee you Larry Summers would not favor a repeal of the tax if energy prices spiked back up.
Bingo,
so it's one of these things, heads the government wins, tails the taxpayers lose.
That is very well put. Yeah, I never see these taxes reverse. It's just like the value-added tax through much of the aforementioned Europe. When it was first introduced, it was supposed to be a short-lived affair, and it was only a few cents on the dollar or euro, whatever you want to call it. And it lives now to be an average of 20 cents. And on and on and on we go. Very good point.
Once you give politicians a new tax, it's like giving alcoholics the keys to a liquor store. It's going to make the problem worse,
and by the way,
better.
The idea that they'll swap out one for another. Remember, the value-added tax was supposed to replace income taxes. They just had both, and they're gathering
and it
on
financed much bigger, and that's the core problem that they're having over in Europe.
All right. Thank you, my friend Dan Mitchell. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.